Football Hall of Famer and broadcaster Shannon Sharpe says he's stepping aside from his job at ESPN in light of new allegations. On Sunday, a woman filed a $50 million civil lawsuit in the state of Nevada.
It's a sad situation. Shannon Sharpe is somebody I work with a couple of days a week. Shannon Sharpe is somebody that I brought to ESPN. In my perfect world, he moves on. And somehow, some way, we find this all to be false. But it doesn't seem like that's the way things are about to go down, considering who Mr. Busby is and how emphatic his client is proclaiming that she is right and she's telling the truth.
What do you do when everything you've built for yourself comes crashing down over a few leaked texts and an audio clip? Shannon Sharpe, once hailed as a sports icon, is now spiraling in one of the most humiliating scandals of 2024. A $50 million lawsuit, disturbing allegations, and an internet firestorm have turned the Hall of Famer into a walking controversy. But this isn't just about messy relationships or bad judgment. It's about power, control, and a secret life that may have been exposed on purpose. On April 21st, Shannon Sharpe's world flipped upside down when a civil lawsuit was filed in Nevada, accusing him of sexual misconduct, coercion, and emotional abuse. The plaintiff was a 19-year-old woman named Gabriela Zuniga, who claimed their so-called relationship was anything but consensual, but it wasn't just the age gap that had people gasping. Explicit text exchanges, alleged payments for intimate encounters, and claims of twisted roleplay that blurred the line between fantasy and manipulation.
You sharing text messages, that's just sharing too much. We didn't want to hear about nobody getting hogtied in your bedroom and your salad getting tossed while you wearing a collar. It's too much.
Almost overnight, Sharpe's name became toxic. This scandal unearthed an entire narrative that called into question everything the public thought they knew about him. The $50 million price tag attached to it represented the silence he allegedly tried to buy, a past he wanted buried, and a future that now hangs in uncertainty. But even worse than the court filing were the whispers that followed. Insiders claimed this wasn't a standalone situation. Some said it was only the beginning, that more women were preparing to step forward with similar stories, and the timing couldn't have been worse. Shannon had just secured high-profile broadcasting gigs, partnerships, and brand deals. Everything was riding high until it wasn't. The internet caught fire, dissecting every element of it. Who was this young woman? Why had Sharpe allegedly paid her tens of thousands per session? And more importantly, what was really going on behind closed doors? But what really ignited the firestorm was the screenshots. Shannon Sharpe, in a bizarre attempt to defend himself, released a series of text messages between him and Gabriela Zuniga. But instead of clearing his name, the move backfired spectacularly.
Race play, Shannon Sharpe. Race play? I didn't even want to talk about this, but the more videos I scroll past talking about Shannon Sharpe and this relationship that he had with this 19-year-old, and honestly, I was just assaulted by this information. I didn't know anything about it, and I'm scrolling, minding my business, and I see a deluge of text messages that he released from this girl that are weird and with an obvious race, and it's not just her with the race. He obviously was turned on by these conversations as well, and he only released what she was saying. Put a big black baby in me. Oh my gosh, I can't believe. I wouldn't be surprised if she was calling him the N-word during coitus. He's into that. And if this man is turned on by being racialized in such a weird way,
The texts exposed a dark and unsettling tone to their interactions, revealing a fixation on racially charged language and disturbing bedroom roleplay that caught the internet completely off guard. Uncomfortable phrases with references to Shannon's size and race were explosive, and while the messages initially appeared to come from Gabriela, fans quickly noticed something strange. Shannon had only shared her side of the conversation. His replies were conveniently missing. That omission didn't just raise eyebrows, it launched full-blown theories. Was he the one who initiated the race play?
And just one more thing about Mr. Sharpe. It is my theory, just my opinion, my theory. I think all of this RACE rhetoric that was in those text messages started with him. It's becoming more and more clear to me, in my opinion, that he has a race. He has a fit for that type of dynamic. Think about it. This was a 19-year-old white woman when he met her. I don't know any 19-year-old white woman that's running around hollering about a big black baby. and Baby Gravy. Shannon was a 54-year-old, big, black, grown man from the backwoods of Georgia. Gravy sound like he's familiar with. Big black babies, he probably seen a few in his day. Born in the backwoods of Georgia where he grew up with his grandma and all them other folks. But I just don't think that came from her. Now, is she repeating it back in those text messages? Yes, that's why he released her messages, not his. Peep that. Okay, we haven't seen what his responses was, and I guarantee you, when they post those messages, y'all gonna see. All of that race started with him. And he could only play that kind of stuff out with a young girl. He couldn't, like Monique was trying to tell him, get an older gal. Older gal ain't going for that. They was going immediately knew he was a freak and a weirdo. A 19-year-old don't know better. That's why she repeated it back to him, because he said it to her first. Older men, that's why they tend to want to be with younger women. They're more impressionable. They can mold them. They can shape them to be what they want them to be. Do what they want them to do. You let him come to a 40 or 50-year-old woman talking about put a big black baby and Baby Gravy. We gonna be looking like, what's wrong with you? Yeah, that started with him. Mark my words, it's gonna come out. But that race stuff started with Shannon.
Commentators accuse Shannon of curating the text to make himself look like the victim, while hiding the role he allegedly played in orchestrating the dynamic. Some even claimed that Gabriella's replies seemed more like echoes of what she was told, not things she invented on her own. The theory was that Shannon had a long-standing fetish for racial degradation and used his wealth and influence to play it out in private with younger, impressionable women. It was a shocking revelation for a public figure who built his brand on confidence, strength, and Southern-rooted moral values. People weren't just angry, they felt duped, and the texts he released didn't just tarnish his image, they cracked it open. Just when it seemed the scandal had peaked, an audio recording surfaced that took the entire situation to a new, disturbing level. In the leaked clip, Shannon Sharpe can be heard making an explicit threat. The voice is unmistakably his.
I don't know. Anything I say, you're just gonna like get mad at, and you're just gonna hang up on me, so I feel like...
I'm not gonna hang up on you. Here's what it is.
What does that even mean?
Nothing, Gabby. You want to be a dick to me now, so.
I don't want to be. Don't manipulate me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. If you say that one more time, I'm gonna choke the shit out of you when I see you.
For many, this was no longer a matter of questionable taste or fetish, it was a potential safety issue. What made the audio especially alarming wasn't just the content, it was the tone. It didn't sound like something ripped from a consensual fantasy. It sounded like a man speaking with intent. Even if some speculated it was part of their private roleplay, the timing couldn't have been worse. The recording only intensified the suspicion that Shannon's behavior had crossed dangerous lines. Public trust collapsed almost instantly. Comment sections flooded with calls for accountability, and hashtags demanding justice for Gabriella trended. Across platforms, people weren't just appalled, they were enraged that a man with so much power and visibility had allegedly used it to feed into something so dark, so manipulative, and now potentially criminal. And yet, even amid the outrage, confusion lingered. Some listeners pointed out how Gabriella seemed to bait Shannon in the recording, pushing the conversation toward explicit territory, but that argument didn't hold much weight. The consensus was clear. Regardless of how it started, Shannon sounded far too comfortable saying the things he said. Suddenly, the scandal wasn't about or leaked texts, it was about power, control, and potential violence. The man once seen as a sports legend now faced accusations that went far beyond public embarrassment. When the audio hit the internet, the decision behind the scenes at ESPN and Disney was already in motion.
I can tell you, I also spoke to co-chairman of Disney, the boss, Jimmy Pitaro, who made it very, very clear we are taking this matter very seriously. And we are looking into this very, very closely. What's inescapable is that without us knowing all the merits, he was working with Disney, where I've worked since 2003. I know this place. I know the worldwide leader that is ESPN, who's under the umbrella of Disney. And it wasn't difficult for me to figure out what was transpiring. They didn't need any definitive evidence at this particular moment in time about all of that stuff. Once all the things Shannon Sharpe's lawyer put out there, it was uncomfortable to listen to. And it was not something that Walt Disney wants associated with its brand. So to have him on the airway while all of that stuff was put out there, was not something that Disney was going to do.
Despite the public statement claiming Shannon Sharpe had stepped away temporarily, insiders were telling a very different story. According to multiple sources within the network, Shannon wasn't given a choice. He was pushed out, and the reasoning went far beyond the headline-grabbing lawsuit. ESPN as a brand has weathered its fair share of controversies, but this was something different. The race play revelations, the leaked messages, and the audio recording painted a picture that was too messy, too unpredictable, and far too risky to keep on air. And with Disney as the parent company, the stakes were even higher. For a corporation that thrives on family-friendly branding and clean public perception, associating with Shannon amid a scandal of this magnitude was unacceptable. This wasn't just a PR issue, it was a brand crisis. Advertisers were getting nervous, sponsors started asking questions, and Disney, with its billion-dollar reputation to protect, made it clear Sharpe could not remain on the airwaves while this storm was still brewing. No conviction was needed. The court of public opinion was enough. What truly sealed the deal, according to those close to the situation, was the discovery that Shannon allegedly attempted to pay off Gabriella long before the lawsuit surfaced. Reports claim he offered large sums, upwards of $25,000 per encounter, to keep everything off the radar. That raised even more red flags. It suggested a pattern of silence buying and damage control, the exact kind of behavior corporations run from. The decision was final. Shannon wasn't coming back, and the illusion that he had voluntarily stepped away was just Disney offering him one last shred of dignity. As Shannon Sharpe's career unraveled, one voice emerged louder than most. Stephen A. Smith, who had once publicly celebrated bringing Shannon into ESPN's fold, took to his platform with a tone that was anything but sympathetic.
I am the executive producer of First Take on ESPN. I recruited Shannon. I went and got him and brought him to ESPN. I'm not the boss. Those are other folks. There are layers to this, and there are certain layers even I am not on. I have no idea what direction ESPN, Walt Disney will go in when it comes to this matter. All I do know is it won't be me making a decision. It'll be others. Steps. In the end, all of us have some ways to do. No matter how maverick we try to be, we own our own business and we're our sole proprietors like I am on this platform and stuff like that. There are advertisers, there are sponsors, there are people you do business with, there are partners, and there are bosses. That's the situation, unfortunately, that Shannon Sharpe finds himself in.
On the surface, his message sounded polished and professional. But between the lines, there was an unmistakable shift from ally to critic. Stephen A. went out of his way to remind everyone that while he may have recruited Shannon, he wasn't the one calling the shots. He stressed that the decision to part ways was above his pay grade, deflecting responsibility while also planting the idea that even he wouldn't have stood in the way. Then came the subtle remarks about professionalism, reputation, and the consequences of certain behaviors.
But if you think for 1 second that I could just do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and there's not going to be any repercussions, you're clueless. And you're destined to fail always. Some people sit up there and they look at me and they say, Stephen A. don't get himself in this kind of trouble. How does he pull it off? Well, first of all, there's certain behaviors and proclivities that never have to worry about me. But most importantly than that, I often say this about, well, I'd rather work for a place with stories.
He never said Shannon's name, but the implication was crystal clear. It was a calculated move. By appearing neutral on the surface, while making it known that ESPN and Disney had no choice, Stephen A. effectively distanced himself from the fallout. He positioned himself as a company man, someone who understands the business and doesn't get entangled in scandals. But fans saw the shade for what it was, a clean break dressed up as concern. Some viewers even speculated that Stephen A. had been waiting for this moment. With Shannon gone, the spotlight widened for him to reclaim full control over the First Take brand. Their chemistry on air had been hyped up, but behind the scenes, tension had been rumored for months. Whether or not there was actual friction, Stephen A.'s lack of public defense spoke volumes. To the audience, the message was clear: when the brand is at stake, no one is safe. Before the scandal exploded, two unlikely voices had already sounded the alarm. Comedian Cat Williams and actress Monique sat down with Shannon Sharpe on his own show, Club Shay Shay, and delivered the kind of warnings most people would have taken seriously, but Shannon didn't. He laughed them off, brushed them aside, and now those old interviews are being replayed like eerie prophecies. Cat Williams, in particular, was brutally direct.
Get with a white woman because I was scared she might have me running down the street like Jonathan Majors.
There you go, come on, Cat.
Not because I didn't like white women. I think white women are as great as any other women. But I'm not gonna act like I'm not scared of them. I have a reason to be scared. You could be Kang the Conqueror, and they could take your rabbit ass down in 2 weekends. And that's the truth of the matter. So I stayed away from that. And remember, I told you the story from when I'm in the park.
Yeah.
So these are just the things. I had all of those when I came in. I already was ready for that.
He told Shannon that the game he was playing with young women was dangerous. He warned that in today's world, even consensual interactions could be turned against you in an instant. Shannon chuckled through it, treating the advice like an exaggerated bit, not the serious caution it was intended to be. Then came Monique. She brought a different energy, less edgy, more maternal, but no less serious. She pleaded with Shannon to stop chasing after women decades younger than him and to seek out someone closer to his own age.
I'm grateful I'm not 56 and trying.
But you tried to say what you tried to say.
I'm looking right at you.
I know you looking at your
I ain't backing down. To make them feel better about themselves when they come home at night. That's what Shannon needs. You don't need no 26-year-old girl. You don't need no 36-year-old girl.
I do.
This is your auntie talking to you. Take your ass and get your old up there that can love you old. You're trying to hang out with these young. You can't do it, Shannon. You just can't do it.
Dang.
When they want you to go for the 4th round, you looking at her. Listen, I need you want some money.
Get you an old that can love your old, she said, half joking, half honestly. But once again, Shannon waved it off. The warnings were right there, staring him in the face, and he shrugged them away. What makes it sting even more is the timeline. Based on public records and leaked messages, Shannon was already deep into his relationship with Gabriella. When those interviews were filmed, he knew exactly what he was doing behind the scenes, and the people who tried to pull him back from the edge, he let their words go in one ear and out the other. It wasn't just a scandal, it was a downfall predicted in real time, and the warnings he chose to ignore are now part of the case against his judgment, his character, and his credibility. If Shannon Sharpe thought the legal system would be his biggest challenge, he underestimated the internet. It was filled with mockery, disbelief, and relentless digital dragging.
Shannon Sharpe, we want out of the group chat now. Like right now, because it's getting disgusting and you need to act your age. First, we had to hear the audio from when you accidentally went live that absolutely nobody asked for. We could have went our whole lives without hearing that. Then you started doing infomercials about ED pills. And now you sharing text messages that's just sharing too much. Well, at what point do you say you just too old? He like that old grandfather that every time he come around, he want to tell you about all the women he got. And when everybody else is talking, he want to talk like he's still in his 20s and he hanging out with the young folks. Pack it up. You just too freaked out at your old age. And we don't want to know about, we truly don't want nothing to do with it. Please, why didn't you just share that in the courts? Share it with the lawyers. Why did we need to see that? Sick of him.
For someone who once commanded respect across sports and entertainment, the shift was brutal. What stung the most was how quickly the public turned. These were former fans, loyal followers, and even colleagues who were now reposting clips and calling him out. People who once admired Shannon for his confidence and sharp commentary were now dissecting his every word, every action, with a tone of disappointment and disgust. Some called him Uncle Buckwheat, mocking the racialized language from the leaked texts. Others dragged him for acting like a 20-year-old when he was pushing 60, posting side-by-sides of Shannon flexing on Instagram next to captions like, "This your king?" One viral tweet summed up the situation perfectly. Shannon went from motivational speaker to race play cosplayer in one season. Tragic. Younger audiences following especially found the age gap dynamic disturbing. They condemned the imbalance of power, questioning whether Gabriella was ever truly in control. Even those who were skeptical of her motives still agreed that Shannon, as the older, wealthier public figure, should have known better. And now the court of public opinion had already set its verdict. Even more damaging were the video clips of Shannon preaching morality, giving advice about discipline, and quoting his grandmother's old-school wisdom, displayed next to the leaked texts and lawsuit details.
God will put you in place people don't think you belong. And anytime you're somewhere where people don't think you belong, you know what they say, Steve? Well, he don't deserve that. Who are you to tell me what God has made a mistake on me? He don't deserve.
The hypocrisy was glaring. The internet wasn't just canceling him, it was dismantling the persona he had spent years building. As the fallout intensified, Shannon Sharpe made one last desperate move. He went public with a claim that he was being unfairly targeted as a successful black man.
To my family, friends, supporters, and colleagues, I want to speak to you directly and from the heart. This is a shakedown. I'm going to be open, transparent, and defend myself because this isn't right. This is all being orchestrated by Tony Busby. who has targeted Jay-Z. Tony Busby targets black men, and I believe he's going to release a 30-second clip of a tape that tries to make me look guilty and play into every stereotype you could possibly imagine.
In a carefully worded statement, he accused Gabriela Zuniga's lawyer, Tony Busby, of going after high-profile black men for clout, comparing his situation to past attacks on figures like Jay-Z. But the backlash to this defense came loud, because if there was one thing the public wasn't buying, it was Shannon trying to become the victim while the receipts told a very different story. This was the same man who willingly participated in racially demeaning role-play scenarios, and now he was crying racial injustice. Social media lit up with pointed critiques. You can't your own race in private and then weaponize it for sympathy in public. Fans who might have stood by him in a different context were now furious that he was trying to flip the narrative into something noble. The damage wasn't just reputational, it was communal. Black commentators, influencers, and fans began to distance themselves, calling his claim an embarrassment and a slap in the face to those who've actually faced unjust targeting. And they had a point. Shannon wasn't arrested, he wasn't silenced, and he wasn't prosecuted. He was exposed by his own messages, his own recordings, and his own judgment. The more he leaned into the "they're coming for me" narrative, the more isolated he became. It didn't read as strength, it read as deflection. People weren't buying that this was some coordinated takedown, and as the outrage continued to brew, one final chilling detail from the lawsuit sent everything into overdrive. $50 million. That's how much Gabriela is demanding in damages. Shannon Sharpe's downfall isn't just about scandal, it's about the collision of ego, silence, and consequence. From leaked text to incriminating audio, from ignored warnings to corporate exile, every step revealed a deeper unraveling behind this public figure. And now the man once celebrated for his discipline and drive is being remembered for a scandal covered in contradiction and controversy. Was this all a setup by someone playing a long game or a self-inflicted implosion? The court will decide the legal outcome, but in the eyes of the public, the damage is already done. One thing's certain, this story isn't over. More receipts may drop, more people may speak, and what comes next might just rewrite everything again. Drop your thoughts below. Was Shannon targeted, or did he throw it all away? Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next, because this saga is far from finished.
These big deviants is all catching hell in 2024. It's up for all of them. It don't matter if you Diddy or whoever you is.